talk about sheep, as I am going to be today, it usually has quite negative connotations. Probably you think of followers or stupid or blind. And maybe sheep could do with a little bit of some public relations advice, perhaps, because actually sheep are really important and really valuable animals. They provide wool to make into clothing, milk, which can be made into yogurt and cheese, etc., and of course, meat. But sheep can also make use of the much sparser pastures than cows can. They're able to cope with rough ground. They're actually really good climbers. And they were especially suited to the conditions in Israel. But sheep are not good at looking after themselves. They're not able to defend themselves, and they haven't the sense to go back to safety. And that's why they need shepherds to look after them, to lead the sheep to fresh pastures and to water, to ensure that they don't get lost or trapped or eaten by predators. And sheep wander away because they're just too stupid to realise the benefits of staying with the shepherd. There's always a little bit of grass somewhere else that looks just that little bit greener. And isn't that us? We wander away because we think we know better than God about what is good for us. And once the sheep has wandered away from the shepherd and from the flock, it's on its own. If it falls or gets injured or trapped, it will starve to death or be eaten. So let's have a look at a parable that Jesus told. We're in Luke chapter 15, verses 4 to 6. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go to search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he's found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. When he arrives, he'll call together his friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, because I found my lost sheep." Well, I'm always losing things. Confession right now. I do a boy look. It's not there. And my husband, the boy in the family, will then go, "Have you looked under?" And then he finds it for me. I am quite hopeless at losing things. But you see, Jesus' story doesn't seem to make economic sense, does it? If I lost one thing, I wouldn't risk losing 99 other things for the sake of finding that one. Maybe that's why I'm not a shepherd. You see, as Jesus told this parable, he explained how the shepherd's love knows no boundaries, and he would do anything to bring his sheep that went astray back into his care. The shepherd searches high and low and chases after each lost sheep with that persevering love that we've sung about this morning. This shepherd will not stop searching until he finds it. Psalm 23 begins with a declaration of that the Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. That's verse 1. And we know that he is our shepherd. The words then become so much more powerful. The Lord tends to us as a shepherd looks after his sheep. He searches for us and he seeks us out when we've gone astray. Some of us have got that testimony, haven't we? He sought us when we went astray. And he guides us and he protects us and gathers us in his arms and carries us close to his heart. Indeed, we're told by Jesus, "I am the good shepherd." This is John 10, verse 11. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. We're going to come back to that point in a bit. But back to the parable, verse 6. Then, when he has found his sheep, there's a joyous celebration. He doesn't question the sheep. He doesn't shame them. "What were you thinking? Where have you been? Why did you leave the safety of the fold?" He doesn't question the sheep. Instead, Jesus said that the shepherd just joyfully picks up that sheep and carries it home on his shoulders. I love this picture. Can you see Jesus? I just see that as Jesus in the background, just hunting out that lost sheep, running. And then he gathers all his friends to celebrate over the return of what was so dear to him. We lost Emily when she was little. It was really terrifying. We were at a theme park, and she was just into everything at the time. And 1 minute she was there, she just disappeared. Oh my gosh, that was the most terrible. And it wasn't even too long, was it, Rob? But our hearts were in our mouths. We were desperately hunting and searching for her. She was quite little at the time, and when we found her, she did get the, what were you thinking? Why did you run off? But that was just because we were just so desperate to find her. But I want you to know, if you're lost today, or if you don't even know who the Good Shepherd is, he's so desperate to have you in the fold. He wants to bring you to him, bring you back to him. You're not going to be greeted with shame or anger, like the prodigal son assumed that his father was going to be at him. You're worth the risk to Jesus. The Bible tells us that the shepherd takes a risk and leaves the other 99 to get back to the one. It's not his will that anyone should perish. He wants to find you. He wants to have you home with him. The theologian Charles Spurgeon said this about sheep. A sheep is of all creatures the most senseless. If we've lost a dog, it may find its way home again. Possibly a horse might return to its master's stable, but a sheep will wander on and on in endless mazes lost. Sometimes I just feel like a stupid sheep. And maybe you've encountered predators and incurred pain along the way. And maybe you've come today because you need healing. And it might not be a physical healing, but you need emotional healing. You need spiritual healing. Because maybe you've allowed voices of guilt or shame or fear or pride to keep you away from the shepherd who cares for you so deeply. Or maybe you've been bruised by other sheep. You may feel like a black sheep, one of the flock, but you just don't fit. I've been there. I know what that's like. The term originated from the odd black sheep that was born into a flock of white sheep. You see, black wool was undesirable because you couldn't dye it. So because the black wool wasn't valued as much as white wool, the sheep wasn't valued either. And there are some people and communities who will value us more highly if we conform to their standards of what is worthy. We'll be included if we're the same and not different. We're valued only if we measure up, and our worth is measured by our ability to blend in. I want to tell you, with God, your worth is measured because you are his child. Jesus took your place. You were worth dying for. You are worth one Jesus. Black sheep, you're welcome here. Come and join the fold. This parable brings hope as we see this relentless love of the shepherd. Jesus, our good shepherd, proved his love when he laid down his life for us all. He died on the cross and took the sins of humankind upon himself. He never gives up on us, even when we wander and even when we stray. He desperately longs to bring us into relationship with him. His love keeps searching until we are found. As Jesus told his followers in John 10:14-16, I'm the good shepherd. I know my own sheep, and they know me, just as my Father knows me, and I know the Father. I sacrifice my life for the sheep. I have other sheep too that are not in the sheepfold. I must bring them also. They will listen to my voice, and there will be one flock with one shepherd. Are we listening to the voice of the Good Shepherd in all that we do? Do you recognize his voice amongst the many voices out there? You know, there's many passages in the Old Testament that use shepherds to refer to the coming Messiah. One of the most important ones is in Ezekiel chapter 34. The Good Shepherd passage. And to the listeners at the time of Jesus, they would know these scriptures, okay? So bear that in mind. This is a scripture. Ezekiel 34, 11 to 12. For this is what the sovereign Lord says, I myself will search and find my sheep. I will be like a shepherd looking for his scattered flock. I will find my sheep and rescue them from all the places where they were scattered on that dark and cloudy day. Now, God here is talking about the scattered and bruised people of Israel, and he loves his lost sheep, and he sees their pain and sadness, even more so in recent months. Hey, he knew that they would never find their way back to God on their own. And God wanted to care for them, heal them, fix the broken world they lived in because he cared for them. And it goes on from verse 15, I myself will tend my sheep and give them a place to lie down in peace, says the sovereign Lord. I will search for my lost ones who strayed away, and I will bring them safely home again. I will bandage the injured and strengthen the weak. In order to shepherd or to lead, you have to be able to see ahead. Your foresight has to be greater than just your line of sight. And a shepherd needs to be willing to stand in times of trouble and guide and protect the sheep. There were two major leaders of Israel who were actual shepherds of sheep before they were shepherds of people. The first was Moses, who was looking after sheep in the desert when he first heard God's call from the burning bush. By the way, let's just note here that it was in the wilderness and not the green pastures that he would be leading his sheep through. And maybe you too know that sense of wilderness at the moment. We'd love to pray for you if that's you today. But the second was David. And he was also out looking after sheep when Samuel came to choose the next king of Israel. He went on to write Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. David was protecting the sheep from lions and bears. And so for the Jews of Ezekiel's time, the shepherds of Israel were the leaders, their kings. But sadly, as described in Ezekiel, Israel hadn't always had good shepherds, doesn't always have good shepherds. Some of them were more like hired hands who didn't care for the flock. And Jesus, on the other hand, lays down his life for the sheep. The shepherds in Ezekiel had taken advantage of their position. It was normal for a shepherd to live off what the sheep provided, milk, wool, and meat. But these shepherds are not only taking that, they were not actually caring for the welfare of the sheep. They've got it the wrong way round. They care for the sheep so that they will produce the good milk and wool and meat. They've forgotten that the sheep aren't there for their benefit, that they're looking after them on behalf of God. Well, maybe you're carrying wounds from previous leaders, pastors at your old church perhaps, or those you thought you trusted. Those shepherds who should have been looking after the sheep, and they abused their power. And I'm so sorry if that's you. Don't let the enemy whisper to you and tell you not to listen to our good shepherd as other shepherds have let you down. May God give you the grace to forgive shepherds, leaders who've hurt you. Because the good shepherd Jesus is your restorer and your healer. There's a beautiful song by I Am They, and it's called Scars. I particularly love these words. 'cause my brokenness brought me to you, and these wounds are a story you'll use, so I'm thankful for the scars, 'cause without them, I wouldn't know your heart. The Lord is the shepherd that cares. In your brokenness, draw close to him. Through the darkest times, he is with you. As we read in Psalm 23, verse 4, even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. There is an enemy, and his main objective is to kill, steal, and destroy. And he'll try and blend in with the flock. Something can look a lot like light, but if it doesn't line up with God's word, it's darkness, and it will lead you down a very dangerous path. Check who you're listening to, check who you're following. We need to have discernment, as Jesus warned in Matthew 7:15. Beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep, but are actually really vicious wolves. Jesus possibly wasn't saying that the wolves were pretending to be sheep. You see, the illustration probably refers to them pretending to be shepherds, because in those days the shepherds would typically wear the woolen clothing which came from the sheep that they cared for. You see, false prophets pretend to be shepherds who care for the flock, but really they are wolves that want to destroy the flock. And we've got to be discerned about who we allow to speak into our lives. And that includes who you're listening to online. Just be really mindful of that. At the time of Jesus, sheep were kept in an enclosure called a sheep pen. It was built with walls made of stacked rocks. And the pen would have a small opening for the entrance that the sheep would go in and out of when they were called by the shepherd. The shepherd would lie in front of this entering space and would sleep there at night to protect the sheep. John 10:7, Jesus said, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. Rob, show the picture. Can you see the shepherd as the gate? That's Jesus. He's lying in the gap for you, protecting you, keeping you safe. You see, sheep are known for their poor eyesight. They wouldn't be able to clearly see the narrow opening that leads them into the pen. And so when the shepherd called them out by name, they recognized and they followed the sound of his voice. Just like shepherds know their flock, Jesus knows us, and he calls us by name and leads us out of fear and bondage and insecurity. And the shepherd's voice is calling you today. He calls you by name. He wants you to know him so well that you can sense him leading in every area of your life. So just take a moment, because what is the Good Shepherd saying to you right now? And what's the message that he wants to speak through you to others? During Holy Week in Rome 10 years ago, Pope Francis called on the world's priests to stay close to the vulnerable and the marginalised. This is what I'm asking you, he said with emphasis, looking up from his prepared text. Be shepherds with the smell of sheep. That's a challenge for leaders. How much do we smell of the sheep in our community, of our church, in our workplaces? You see, you may feel lost, but God has a rescue plan in sending Jesus as the Good Shepherd. He will not forsake his flock. It is never too late to turn towards our shepherd's voice and enter his embrace. We can turn to him with all of our brokenness and our bruises and be found in his loving arms. You see, to the shepherd, all the sheep are important and valuable. those who are safely in the fold and those who've wandered off. The shepherd doesn't value the ones in the fold or the pen less than the one who wanders off. God delights in those who follow him, but there's a special kind of joy when someone turns to him, because God is a loving God who wants all of us to be saved and healed. And that is why, however often we stray, however often we sin and mess up, he's looking for you. He's running for you. He wants to bring you safely back home if you'll let him. Now, you may have lost your footing along the way, but he's gently calling you home, and you can be found in him. Amen.